The passing of Pope Francis has sent shockwaves through the Catholic Church and the global community. In the wake of this profound loss, Cardinal Raymond Burke, a prominent figure known for his traditionalist views and outspoken nature, made a startling confession that left many fans and followers in disbelief. What could have prompted such a candid revelation from a cardinal often seen as a polarizing figure? Stick with us in this video to explore Burke's confession, its implications for the Church, and the reactions it elicited from both supporters and critics alike. But before we embark, join our community by subscribing to our channel, so you don't miss any interesting celebrity news. Raymond Leo Burke, born on June 30th, 1948 in Richland Center. Wisconsin was the youngest of 6 children in an Irish Catholic family. Raised on a peaceful dairy farm by his parents Thomas and Marie, Burke faith played a central role in their daily lives. A pivotal moment came when Raymond was in 2nd grade. His father was diagnosed with brain cancer. During this time, a local priest frequently visited to offer communion, leaving a profound impact on Raymond. Inspired by the priest's presence, Raymond aspired to become a priest himself. At 14, he took a significant step by enrolling in Holy Cross Seminary in La Crosse, Wisconsin, demonstrating his commitment to his faith. Later, Burke pursued his education at the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C., where he earned a bachelor's and master's degrees in philosophy. His academic journey continued in Rome at the renowned Pontifical Gregorian University, where he studied theology and resided at the Pontifical North American College, a training ground for future bishops and cardinals. Among his classmates were future high-ranking church leaders, including Cardinals Blase, J. Cupich, and James Harvey. Yet the pivotal moment in Burke's life occurred in 1975 when he was ordained a priest at St. Peter's Basilica by Pope Paul VI. For a farm boy from Wisconsin, it marked the start of a significant journey within the church, evolving from a parish priest to a prominent Vatican lawyer. After his ordination, Burke returned to La Crosse, where he worked at the Cathedral of St. Joseph the Workman and taught religion at a local high school. However, in 1980, his trajectory shifted as he was sent to Rome to study canon law, the Catholic Church's legal system. Initially unenthusiastic and feeling lost, Burke's outlook changed when an older priest mentored him, providing crucial support. This mentorship ignited Burke's passion for canon law, leading him to earn a doctorate and establish himself as a leading expert in this field. Upon returning to the U.S., he took on significant roles, including moderator of the Curia and vice-chancellor of the Diocese of La Crosse. In 1989, Pope John Paul II appointed him the first American defender of the bond at the Apostolic Signatura, the Church's highest court, solidifying Burke's status as a key figure in the Vatican's legal sphere. Burke's influence grew significantly over the years, culminating in his promotion to Archbishop of St. Louis in 2004. He earned a reputation as a strict conservative leader, advocating for traditional Catholic teachings and regularly celebrating the Old Latin Mass. His strong defense of church teachings on marriage, abortion, and the Eucharist distinguished him among bishops. He often stated that politicians who supported abortion, such as John Kerry and Joe Biden, should be denied communion. This hardline approach garnered support from conservative Catholics, but also sparked controversy and division within the Vatican. In 2008, Pope Benedict XVI recalled Burke to Rome, appointing him prefect of the Supreme Tribunal of the Apostolic Signatura, the court where he had previously worked. 2 years later, he was made a cardinal, reaching the peak of his influence, respected and aligned with the conservative wing of the Church. However, the election of Pope Francis in 2013 marked a turning point as their views diverged. Francis advocated for a more open church, while Burke resisted changes regarding LGBTQ rights, divorce, and communion rules, insisting on maintaining traditional stances. In an interview, Burke emphasized, "We can never talk enough about abortion or marriage between one man and one woman." Tensions escalated when, in December 2013, Pope Francis removed him from the Congregation of Bishops, signaling their disagreement. The situation worsened in 2014 during a Vatican meeting on family issues where a report suggested recognizing positive aspects of gay relationships. Burke expressed his outrage, stating, "There is a strong sense that the Church is like a ship without a rudder," a remark that gained widespread attention. Shortly after, Pope Francis reassigned Burke from his prominent legal role to a more symbolic position as patron of the Sovereign Military Order of Malta. While Francis claimed this was not a punishment, many interpreted it differently. Despite losing his Vatican position, Burke remained vocal, opposing what he viewed as harmful changes in the Church and becoming an unofficial leader for conservative Catholics. He continued to make headlines, criticizing pandemic vaccines and public health policies, which clashed with the Vatican's stance. Even suggesting a potential need to formally correct the Pope shocked many. Now, with Pope Francis's passing and Burke still active at 76, speculation arises about his potential as the first American pope, given his strong support within conservative circles. Burke's journey from a small dairy farm in Wisconsin to the upper echelons of the Vatican is marked by drama, devotion, and division. Following Pope Francis's death, Burke's recent public confession has brought renewed attention to him. His career faced a significant setback in 2014 when Francis removed him from nearly all his responsibilities, relegating him to a ceremonial role. This decision came after Burke attempted to oust a senior official who approved condom purchases for people in Burma, a move that the Pope opposed. Francis subsequently appointed a special delegate to fulfill Burke's former duties at the Order of Malta. Although Burke was not officially punished, it was evident that he had lost influence, highlighting the growing rift between him and Francis. Despite this tension, Burke remained vocal on various issues. He emphasized that the Church views human sexuality as a cherished gift and often addressed internal problems, notably the child abuse scandal. While condemning abusive priests, he pointed to deeper issues, asserting in 2015 that radical feminism has undermined both the Church and society since the 1960s. This perspective further illustrated the ideological divide between Burke and the current leadership. In 2019, Burke reaffirmed his controversial views, claiming that the abuse crisis stemmed from the homosexual agenda. He argued that many priests involved in abuse were feminized and confused about their sexual identities. These statements sparked significant backlash, reflecting Burke's belief that the Church had strayed from its traditional roots and highlighted ongoing tensions with Pope Francis. In addition, during the COVID-19 pandemic, Cardinal Burke became a vocal opponent of COVID-19 vaccines, especially those developed using stem cells. He spread distrust and even promoted conspiracy theories, suggesting vaccines could contain microchips or be part of a global control scheme known as the Great Reset. Though these claims were debunked, Burke stood by them. Ironically, he contracted a severe case of COVID-19, was placed on a ventilator, and nearly died, yet eventually recovered and resumed public appearances. Burke also strongly opposed abortion, criticizing Pope Francis for not addressing it forcefully enough. He urged U.S. bishops to deny communion to pro-abortion. Rights politicians like John Kerry and President Joe Biden, warning that failure to do so weakened the faith. Additionally, Burke defended the traditional Latin Tridentine Mass, which dates back to the 1500s. When Pope Francis restricted its use in 2021, Burke condemned the move as drastic and questioned the Pope's authority. His attachment to tradition drew attention again when he was photographed wearing a traditional cardinal hat, sparking debates about his push to revive outdated customs. Burke claimed the traditional cardinal hat was merely a gift he wore once for a photo, stating, "I have no idea where he got it from. I've never worn it, not even for a ceremony." Despite their clashes, both he and Pope Francis maintained they did not view each other as enemies, with the Pope affirming in 2017, "I do not see Cardinal Burke as an enemy." However, their differences were evident. In late 2023, Pope Francis took significant action against Burke by revoking two major privileges: his rent-free apartment in Rome and his monthly Vatican salary of $5,000. These benefits were substantial, especially considering Burke often criticized the Pope publicly. The decision came after Burke's latest remarks against the Pope's support for blessing same-sex couples and allowing communion for divorced Catholics. In October 2023, Burke openly opposed these initiatives. In response, Pope Francis issued a letter clarifying that priests could bless same-sex couples if it did not equate their relationships to traditional marriage. This represented a significant shift for the Catholic Church toward openness while maintaining certain boundaries. However, Burke viewed it as too radical. A meeting of Vatican leaders on November 20th concluded that Burke had overstepped by using the Church's support against it, leading to the revocation of his privileges. Despite this, Burke stated he had no intention of leaving Rome and insisted he did not feel the Pope viewed him as an enemy, though the line between disagreement and disloyalty had clearly been crossed, fueling further rumors. Then on April 21, 2025, deep sorrow swept across Rome and the Catholic world as news broke of Pope Francis's death. St. Peter's Square fell silent, the usual sound of bells and crowds replaced by stillness and mourning. Known for his compassion, reform, and dedication to the poor, Pope Francis passed away after years of illness and the burden of leading a divided church. The announcement sparked global grief, with millions turning to prayer. Within the Vatican, time seemed to freeze. Clergy moved in silence, and the great bell of St. Peter's tolled in somber tones, echoing the sadness felt throughout Rome. The ancient walls of the Vatican, steeped in centuries of papal history, seemed to absorb the weight of loss. Yet beneath the mourning, tensions stirred. As preparations for the next papal conclave began, a shocking revelation emerged. An anonymous confession surfaced on independent media, soon revealed to be from a cardinal who once betrayed Pope Francis. The Church now faced not just loss, but a brewing internal crisis. Cardinal Raymond Burke, once a powerful figure in the Vatican and former Archbishop of St. Louis, was removed from power by Pope Francis in 2014. His recent revelations were more than just a late act of contrition. They were a seismic event that shook the Church's foundations and exposed some of the Vatican's darkest secrets. Known for his strict demeanor and unwavering conservatism, Burke had long been a challenge for Francis. Yet no one anticipated that in a time of deep mourning for the Church, he would reveal actions he had kept hidden for so long. His statement, both anguished and chillingly precise, began with a line that captivated every reader. "I have sinned against the Holy Father, against the unity of the Church, and perhaps against God himself. My conscience has found no peace since his passing." These words, though seemingly penitent, immediately raised questions. Was Burke genuinely remorseful, or was this a strategic move to reshape his image before the conclave to elect a new pope? Burke admitted to orchestrating and leading a network of conservative clergy intent on obstructing Francis's reforms. He disclosed that since his demotion in 2014 from his role as prefect of the Apostolic Signatura, he had secretly allied with disenchanted cardinals and bishops to oppose the Pope's policies. Letters of protest, including the infamous 2016 dubia, were not just theological disagreements, but part of a coordinated effort to undermine Francis's authority. Burke confessed to intentionally increasing confusion within the Church, hoping to pressure Francis into reversing reforms on marriage, immigration, and relations with the LGBTQ+ community. His transgressions went beyond church matters. He disclosed collaborating with far-right political groups in the U.S. and Europe, organizations rich in resources and aligned with his conservative views. These groups, according to Burke, provided financial backing and media support for public campaigns against Pope Francis, distributing articles and documents accusing him of deviating from Catholic teachings. Burke also confessed to attending secret meetings with donors in Washington, D.C. and Rome, where strategies were devised to undermine the faithful's trust in Francis's leadership. One of the most significant revelations was Burke's admission to leaking confidential Vatican documents. He revealed that he had provided insider information on Pope Francis's discussions with the cardinals about Amoris Laetitia and synodality to conservative media outlets like LifeSite News and Church Militant. These leaks aimed to portray the Pope as indecisive and struggling with opposition. Burke stated, "I believed I was defending the Church, but now I see I contributed to division and suffering." Vatican analysts such as Crux suggested that these actions were not only unethical, but could also be considered treason against the Holy See. He wrote, "The death of the Holy Father was my wake-up call. I saw his face in his final days full of pain, yet overflowing with love. I can no longer live with this burden." Despite the repentant tone of his words, they did little to quell the controversy. Other cardinals, particularly those loyal to Francis, criticized Burke's actions as irresponsible and a betrayal. Some even suggested he should be stripped of his cardinalate, a rare punishment in church history. Although Burke's confession was intensely personal and emotional, many doubted his true intentions. Some commentators, including writers for the National Catholic Reporter, speculated that Burke was trying to restore his reputation before the papal conclave. By publicly repenting, he might hope to be seen as courageous and principled, thereby gaining sympathy from moderate cardinals. A bold theory quietly circulated within the Vatican, suggesting a provocative question. Was Burke setting the stage for a bid to become the next pope? Could Cardinal Burke be the choice for the conclave? With Pope Francis's passing and Burke still active at 76, attention has once again focused on him. There is growing speculation that Burke might become the first American pope. He has a dedicated following and is recognized as a leading conservative figure in the church today. The controversy involving Cardinal Burke arose at a particularly delicate time, just as Pope Francis passed away, prompting a broader question. What is the future direction of the church, and who will lead it? Traditionally, after a pope's death, the church enters a mourning period and prepares for a papal conclave to choose the next pope. This conclave is a pivotal event in the Catholic Church, where cardinals under 80 gather in the Sistine Chapel to elect a new pope. In this scenario, Raymond Leo Burke, the 76-year-old American cardinal, has unexpectedly become a potential, albeit contentious, candidate due to his strong conservative views and the support he receives from traditionalist Catholic groups. The process begins immediately after the Pope's death, with the Camerlengo confirming the Pope's death and destroying the fisherman's ring, the symbol of papal authority. The conclave is held in strict secrecy. The cardinal electors are secluded in the Sistine Chapel with no contact with the outside world. They can conduct up to 4 voting rounds each day until a candidate achieves a 2/3 majority. This is not just an administrative task, but a sacred ritual with the cardinals seeking the Holy Spirit's guidance through prayer. The conclave also serves as a platform for political alliances where conservative, progressive, and centrist factions vie to influence the church's future. In this setting, Cardinal Raymond Burke emerges as a strong candidate due to several distinct factors. At 76, he is still eligible to vote and is recognized as one of the church's leading conservative figures. He has a dedicated following, especially among traditionalist Catholic groups in the U.S., Europe, and parts of Africa, who see him as a defender of unwavering doctrine. His support grew after a surprising admission, where he acknowledged his past opposition to Pope Francis, but expressed sincere regret. For some cardinals, this act of contrition might be perceived as a sign of spiritual growth, portraying Burke as a symbol of courageous repentance. Burke's extensive experience in the Roman Curia also works in his favor. As the former prefect of the Apostolic Signatura, he possesses an in-depth understanding of the Vatican's governance system and maintains strong connections with many conservative cardinals. His profound knowledge of canon law, combined with his fluency in Italian and Latin, enables him to navigate the conclave's international setting with ease. Burke is a prominent media figure, often appearing on EWTN and other conservative Catholic platforms, which has helped him cultivate an image as a steadfast leader. However, his prospects of becoming pope face significant challenges. Firstly, the current College of Cardinals has been heavily influenced by Pope Francis, who has appointed over 70% of its voting members. Cardinals like Luis Tagle and Matteo Zuppi generally align with Francis's progressive vision, making it unlikely they would support a staunch conservative like Burke. Additionally, Burke's history of conflicts with Francis has made him a polarizing figure. Many cardinals who wish to continue Francis's legacy may worry that electing Burke would exacerbate internal tensions, especially after his dramatic admissions. Moreover, at age 76, Burke is older than most recent popes at the time of their election, which might discourage those seeking a longer papacy. However, the timing of this conclave could potentially benefit Burke. The passing of Francis has sparked renewed discussions about the Church's future direction, with some cardinals advocating for a balance between reform and tradition. As the first American with a realistic chance at the papacy, Burke offers a fresh perspective at a time when the Church is becoming more global. Conservative groups in the U.S., supported by substantial financial and media resources, might discreetly support him, seeing Burke as someone who could restore traditional Catholic values. If the conclave reaches an impasse and cannot settle on a centrist candidate, Burke might become the compromise choice for the conservative faction. Besides Burke, there are numerous candidates from different church factions, some leaning progressive and others like Burke, more conservative. Leading contenders include Cardinal Proen, a moderate and former Vatican Secretary of State, and Cardinal Matteo Zuppi, recognized for his charitable work and alignment with Francis's values. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle from the Philippines is also notable for his progressive stance. On the conservative side, there's Cardinal Peter Erdo of Hungary, who shares some of Burke's views, but is much more discreet. Currently, Burke is ranked 6th among the top candidates for the papacy. What distinguishes Burke is not only his conservative ideology, but also his strong political support from Donald Trump, who is currently serving his second term as President of the United States. Trump's backing comes from a desire to counter Pope Francis's legacy. Throughout his papacy, Francis often criticized Trump's policies such as building a wall on the U.S. Mexico border and withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreement, Francis condemned anti-immigrant views as un-Christian and advocated for a fairer economy, which Trump and his allies labeled as socialist. By supporting Burke, who has opposed many of Francis's reforms, Trump sees an opportunity to indirectly reshape the church according to his political priorities while demonstrating to his opponents that his influence remains strong. As word spread about Burke being considered a potential candidate for the papacy, the church and its followers were thrown into turmoil, with reactions ranging from deep disappointment to outright anger. An anonymous cardinal told Vatican News that the situation had harmed the church at a moment when unity was desperately needed. On the other hand, conservative cardinals, particularly those from Eastern Europe and Africa, viewed Burke's admission as a bold act, strengthening his image as a steadfast leader willing to address his past mistakes. In contrast, progressive Catholic communities in regions like Latin America and Western Europe, where Pope Francis is celebrated as a champion of the poor, reacted with sharp criticism to Burke's confession. Lay organizations organized prayer vigils in cities such as Buenos Aires and Lisbon, urging the Vatican to safeguard Francis's legacy and reject conservative candidates like Burke. Meanwhile, small protests emerged in St. Peter's Square, where some demonstrators held signs reading, "Don't let politics overshadow faith." However, certain conservative groups saw Burke as a chance to restore the Church's traditional teachings. This growing divide further heightened the tension within the Vatican. Progressive Catholics feared that a pope like Burke would focus on doctrinal issues such as opposing abortion and same-sex marriage, rather than continuing Pope Francis's social mission of aiding the poor and protecting the planet. Believers hoped the conclave would elect a pope who would follow Francis's path instead of reverting to conservatism. The Vatican faced a crucial choice: uphold Francis's legacy or shift in a different direction. Media outlets like the Catholic Herald characterized the conclave as a referendum on this legacy, determining whether the Church would embrace openness or retreat into strict doctrine. At this historic crossroads, the Church had to decide whether to maintain an inclusive vision or revert to the conservatism represented by figures like Burke. The outcome depended on the cardinals, with implications that would shape the Catholic Church for generations. With Pope Francis's passing, many questions remained unresolved. And that's the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. We truly appreciate your time and support. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel, All Profiles, so you never miss an update. Your engagement means the world to us, and we can't wait to see you in the next video.